Yo, interwebbers, you've clicked on WDY, you're listening to Sick Verse, and my head is in a shed. Right, firstly, let me apologise to people that have clicked on my videos and then they've had to they've seen stuff deleted and then, they've put back on again and they have to listen to it again, right? And you know what it is, right? I'll be straight up with you. I'm trying to go back 30 years, yeah? And I'm missing stuff out and I'm getting stuff in wrong order, and this has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. It's been a thorn in my side now for about 6 months. You won't believe how many videos I've done, and you know it is. I've got OCD, me, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's got to be perfect. It's got to be right, and if it ain't right, you know it is. I'm a firm believer in that if you're gonna do a job, I do it right. So yeah, and here I am again. Like I say, it's got to be right. So look, there's two reasons why I'm doing this video. Right. First reason is because I really honestly believe that what I've got to say in these videos, right, are going to blow your mind, and it's going to inspire you, it's going to entertain you, it's going to make you wise, you're going to learn from it. It's going to, might make you laugh, might make you cry. Yeah, listen, stick with it, listen to it, because I've got looking, my testimony is just madness, believe me. Second reason is because I got diagnosed with terminal lung disease 4 years ago. Told me I had lungs of a 73-year-old. And what happens is, as your lungs deteriorate, there's less and less oxygen going to your brain, and you can get, your memory can suffer, and you can get dementia and stuff like that. So I've got a lot to look forward to in later life, and I wanted to get it recorded down now for prosperity, so I've got it documented, you know what I mean? So there are two reasons. So right then, let's crack on, right? And before I start, I'll just say this. Look, bear with me. It's like when you read a book for first 40, 50 pages, it might be a bit boring and it's like background stuff, but you need to read it in order to get gist at rest of the book. Yeah, well, this is what 1B is going to be about. But listen, stick with it, right? And I'm going to try and keep it as condensed and concise as possible. Yeah, I don't want to bore you. I don't want you turning off. But this has to be said. So anyway, without further ado, let's crack on. Right, boom, in with it. Right. When I were born, I really didn't want to be on this planet, right? I cried every single day and night for 2 years and drove my parents insane. My mum had postnatal depression a lot. I was a really inquisitive child. I used to take all my Christmas presents and birthday presents apart after 2 weeks to see how they worked. I did nursery school, primary school, middle school and high school, and I loved drawing. I had a great childhood. I went into scouts. I did all radio controlled cars with my mates. I rode around every day everywhere on my bike with my mates. We did old school. There were no mobile phones back in them days. We grew up with chumping for firewood on bonfire night, penny for guy, mischievous night. And we hanging around at shops, and we won't be in like kids of today on social media. We'd be out in all weathers. And but like I say, yeah, I had a great upbringing. I was brought up on a council estate for the first 5 years of my life, but then my parents got a private house, mortgage and that lot. My dad were a joiner and building contractor, and he had a partner. He had his own firm. They had premises. He had lads under him. He had vans, and he worked all weathers, and he grafted hard. He works hard. My mum, she were a dental nurse before me and our kid were born. I've got a brother, a younger brother, 3 years younger. So like I say, yeah, I had a mum and dad, younger brother. Life were good. I didn't want for out, you know. I were well fed, well clothed nicely. Dad built me a treehouse in the back garden, you know. I enjoyed school, but you know it is, I want to swatter out, but then again, I want to noodle them, you know what I mean. I got on my work, but I was popular, you know what I mean. And I never got expelled or suspended or out like that, but, and you know, and I didn't smoke behind bike sheds or carry on. But I got on with my work, and I were you know, straight away people could see that I had a talent in art. Anyway, you know what it is, I had a pal who I grew up through school with. He went to the same nursery school, primary school, middle school and high school, and he were into his drawing, and we had a lot in common, and he was my best bud, and I grew up through school with him. I got good options. I did well at GCSEs. I got 2 A's, 1B, 2 A's, 1B and 2 C's at GCSE level. You know what it is, I'm looking at my notes now because I've got to get it right, you know what I mean. It's that, my life is that complicated, yeah, and I'm going back like 35 years, yeah, I'm nearly 50 now, so I've got to get it right. So like, yeah, I'll get a bit deeper. Right, my mother's side, right, my mother had a mother and father. Yeah, my granddad. My granddad's dad was a Methodist preacher in church, and my granddad become a born-again Christian at 18. He was doing an engineering apprenticeship, but then the Second World War broke out, and he refused to fight in the Second World War, and he was a conscientious objector, and he spent 6 years in army prison, HMP Leeds, for refusing to fight. And my grandma had a tough time of it. But, you know, when he got out, right, you know, he went on from strength to strength, and he ended up having his own factory, sheet metal work and fabrication in Armley plant in Sunshine Mills, massive company. And my grandma, my mum's mum, she were a nurse, but she retired early. My mum had a sister. There were 2 of them, and they had a privileged life. But you know what it is, they were in faith, they grew up in faith. My granddad knew his Bible back to front. I mean, he was a really clever man. And I mean, my memories are of him. I mean, he was old school, you know what I mean. He used to come home, have his tea that my grandma had made, and then he'd piss off in his attic right to his workshop, and he'd build model planes to fly. That's what his hobby was. He'd build model planes, and he'd mess about on his lathe. I mean, we'd go up there as grandkids, right, and we'd make swords and weapons and stuff like that. And we'd come down with them and drive my mum mad, you know what I mean? What you made? What you made them that for, Dad? Always carry on. And but yeah, he was a clever man. But you know what it is, we never got religion rammed down our throats. I mean, most on topic got were when like Christmas, we'd get like a children's illustrated Bible for Christmas presents, something like that, which we didn't like. But my grandma were a cush, man, you know what it is. It was mad. We'd be about 11 years old. We'd go to a video store, remember, once to rent a video, and we picked Poltergeist, 18 certificate. We were only about 11. And she was cush, my grandma, you know what I mean. She didn't like have a tube of glue where that stuff was concerned. And my mum come to, we used to stay Wednesday night at my grandma's, you see, every Wednesday. And she used to buy us plasticine and stuff, and we used to make dens out of a table and all cushions and things. You know, my childhood was fucking ace. You see, my dad's side, right, let me talk about that, right. My dad's were completely polar opposite, right. You know what it is, right, his mum, right, he had a mum, right, but he never knew his dad, right. His mum were a concert pianist, right, believe it or not, right, but her history, her past, is quite checkered. And I've got limited information about it, but she was a concert pianist, but she spent the latter part of her life playing piano in pubs and clubs in Leeds. She used to drink hard liquor. She used to smoke 60 fags a day. She lived on cream cakes. She was a cantankerous, fucking nasty old fucker who'd fall out with anybody. You know what I mean? And my dad, like I say, my dad never knew his real dad. But when his mum died, right, my grandma, right, listen to this, we found out that his real dad, right, were a desert rat in the Second World War. but he never knew him. Anyway, he got a stepdad, right? He were in RAF, right? He used to do all Morse code and communications in war. Lovely bloke, man. Deaf as a post in latter years, but nice bloke. But yeah, I mean, my dad's earliest memories are when hiding behind the settee when Rentman used to come round with his mother. My dad had a sister as well. But you know what it is, he had scruffy clothes and, you know, there wasn't much food about, and he had the complete opposite life to what my mum and her sister had got brought up with, you know what I mean? A complete polar opposite. I couldn't begin to tell you how far apart they were. And what it was, you know, I grew up sat on the fence, right? You know, I've got one side of the family that's atheist and one side of the family that's religious Christian, right? And I grew up sat on the fence, right, not knowing who to believe, right? And I'll be honest with you, yeah, you know, you hear from the Bible and all this stuff about Noah living till 900 and some years old and talking snakes, and you think, what a load of old. And I thought, what a load of old rubbish. You know, I wasn't into it at all, but I didn't get it rammed down my throat. But I just thought I mean, I grew up believing in my own mind that it were a method of control to control population. You know, I didn't buy it at all. But yeah, I grew up sat on the fence. And it was really annoying because I didn't know who'd been hoodwinked and who were telling the truth. But anyway, that was a sort of path that I were going to go down. So yeah, the first thing to happen, right, to put me on the path that I'm going to tell you about in all my testimonies, my grandma gave me a book, and it was called Dancing with the Devil, and it was about this woman who'd been brought up in Bernardo care homes and foster homes, and she's had a real miserable life full of suffering. And she got involved with a cult and satanic church. And this book went on about demons and devil and stuff you think, what on earth? You know, proper like mad shit. And it bugged me, right, because I thought to myself, this can't be fucking true. Not in a million years. Well, you know what it is? It planted a seed in my head that we're going to be like the start of like a mission. But my life would take all sorts of twists and turns and crossroads, and I'd go through furnace numerous times. But yeah. So anyway, I went through school. I did well, 2 A's, 1 B and 2 C's at GCSE, and I got into college and I did a 2-year BTEC National Diploma in graphic design, print photography and design at Leeds College of Technology. And my best mate, he did the same course with me. Like I say, we'd grew up through school, nursery, primary, middle high, and then college now. And it was great. See, my dad and his dad were into the bikes. And my dad was a biker, and I passed my bike test at 17 and he did, and we had motorbikes. You know, I had a TZR, he had an RG, and we'd go to a coffee bar, and we were going through college, and life was brilliant, you know what I mean? We had another group of lads who we used to knock about with bikes. There were a lad called Johnny, he had a DT. There were a lad called Colin, he had a sit-up and beg custom 125. There were a pig farmer called Andy who had a TZR, but he had all power valve servo system on his TZR, and I didn't. I just had to wait for power band to kick in at 7,000 revs before I took off, and he didn't. And we'd go all over. I mean, we'd camp in Scarborough, put a tent on P-Zone Park and put in Green, and we'd camp over. And I remember once when we set off for a breakfast in early hours at morning to go to Brid, and we'd all come off on the same corner on ice. And I had a few accidents, you know what I mean, wet leaves, diesel, ice. But, you know what I mean, it was great, and my childhood was good, but you know what it is, right, it were all going to go completely fucking wrong. And I mean completely fucking wrong. It was mad how it started, right? My mate, my best bud, he knew a guy a motorcycle shop, right? I'm not going to mention where it is, right? It were in Farsley, and he told him this insurance scam. And what you did is, right, you got a car, you got insured for a car. I got a Fiesta 950 Poplar X-Reg, and I insured it. And on back at the certificate, it had in small print, it said, "You may drive anybody else's car or motorcycle as long as it don't belong to you or under hire purchase agreement." And my dad had a Norwich Union rider policy, which meant he could ride any bike and insured over 900cc. His insurance policy didn't have a number plate on it. And I bought a J6R off my dad, right? I were nearly 18. And I kept in his name. And it were a loophole. He could tax it and MOT it for me, right? Because it were in his name and his insurance certificate didn't have a number plate on it. And I were fully road legal on a J6R 1100. All my mates still had 125s. Anthony by this time had got an RGV. But like I say, it were to go completely wrong. But you know what it is? It were great. I went all over. And you know what it is? I never dropped J6R. Never dropped, never crashed it. It was so planted to the road and so powerful. I mean, it was amazing. It had 38mm Mikuni flat slide cabs. It had an aftermarket pipe. It had Goodrich hoses all round. It was Pepsi sponsored. It had a gas flowed head. It was good for 170 mile an hour. And yeah, we used to go all over. And but like I say, it was everything. We're going to go fucking mental tits up. And what happened is, there were one day there were about 12 bikes. There were my dad, I think there were Anthony's dad. We were all going to Matlock Bath that day, and my mate never turned up. Anyway, we ended up going, and we had a great day. We even met Steve James, a snooker player, on his NR 750, and I've got photos to prove it. But yeah, we had a great day. Anyway, I've come back and I've rang his house up, his mum, talked to his mum about, why he didn't turn up, and he'd had an accident on Weight Meters, and he'd hit a stone pillar on Carvely Road, and he died of blood on brain in ambulance, and I lost my pal. I was gutted, and I mean, I was gutted, mate. It were in papers. In fact, there were 2 teenagers that were to die on RGVs in that in a 2-month period. And it were in Yorkshire Evening Post, and police closed road off, and the guy, this motorcycle shop owner, right, he got an RGV from his shop, and there were a police motorcyclist who went up and down roads trying to take same lines as my mate did, and now what happened anyway? They had to reopen road, but this bloke says, this motorcycle shop owner, he says, let me have a go. Anyway, went up. Anyway, he must have took exactly the same lines as my mate did, and Gaspard had just dug up roads, and he went into this almighty tank slapper, and he nearly lost control himself. So anyway, they found out what happened. But yeah, and I were halfway through college with him, and I were gutted. You know what I mean? I'd left school, right, and most of my mates, they were I'd lost touch, and I was a bit of a recluse. But you know what it is? It was just all gonna go fucking wrong. You know? See, it's really complicated, my life at this time. Alright, I look back, right? I mean, I just turned 18, yeah. And I remember doing 2 clinical trials at Besseler. It's called Covans now, they test drugs on you. And I was young, I didn't smoke, you know what I mean? I did 2 trials, and I got well paid. I got £900 for 3 days, and then about 4 months later, I got £1,200 for 4 days. And first clinical trial where I did, they had this drug for thinning your blood. And they did bleeding times on first day, and then second day, I had to lie in this bed for 12 hours, right, and there was this machine with a big screw thread, right, and a big syringe, right, and it pumps a blood thinner into your body over a 12-hour period, and then I did bleeding times, and I got £900 for that. And then the second one I did, right, it was mad as fuck. there were 4 groups, yeah, and they'd got this drug that was for schizophrenia, right, and this tablet form, right, and they were testing it, and then they did Group A and Group B, right, and they were all fucked. They weren't going to test Group C, which is what I were in, and they did. They ended up doing it. We're all in a ward, me and these lads, you know, I mean, I was fit as a fiddle, me. I mean, you get fined £50 if you had a Mars bar or you had a strict diet. And I remember, you know, I'd bought a watch off my cousin, and it could change. It were a remote control for videos and TV, and you had a little booklet that you could program it in. And I remember when ward were evening and we were watching telly, I think they put a video on, right, and I was reading the paper me or pretending to, and I'd press stop, right, and it'd stop, right, or pause, and one of the lads would get out of bed, right, and he'd go up to it and he'd press play, and he'd get back into bed, right, and I'd give it a bit, yeah, and then I'd pause it or stop it again. So then he'd get out of bed, right, and he'd go over and he'd fucking press play, right, and he'd stand there for a couple of seconds, and he'd trudge off back to his bed. As soon as he got back into his bed, right, I'd pause it again. And I did that about 8 hours. Anyway, one of them clocked me. He said, "What's he doing behind that paper?" And they found out. Well, anyway, you know, they did Group C, right? Oh, I did this drug, man. Oh, my God. Listen, you weren't battered out. You didn't enjoy it. It was like, oh, my God, I couldn't even be bothered to pick up a fork or out. I couldn't be bothered to do out. And then there's this nurse with a clipboard asking me questions. But anyway, yeah, I got my money. And see, what happened after my mates died, right, we couldn't do insurance scam anymore, right? And I used this money to buy a K1S. I got it were only 3-year-old. Kawasaki K1S 250. I went back to my stink wheels, and it were practically new. And when Anthony passed, you see, he'd got this job doing freelance cartoonist in Otley. This guy, I'm not going to say his name, and when Anthony died, his mum got in touch with bloke, and I started doing it for him. And I'd go down to Otley on a weekend, right, and I'd do these cartoons for him, and he paid me really well. I was getting £50 a design, man. I was coming home with checks with like 300 quid. I was fucking minted, man. You know what I mean? I was able to buy a car, I had a Golf. I went from strength to strength. But like I say, it was all going to go tits up. But yeah, anyway, one of the days that I was coming back from Otley, I was going too fast, right? I'd only had bike about 6 weeks. And I went too fast, and I come to a bend, and I crossed over to the other side of the road, and a couple of old ladies in a car come round the corner, right? I should have seen their faces. I hit them head on at 85 miles an hour. I broke my femur as I went over the roof of the car, and I flew about 250 foot up road. Anyway, wrote bike off, bolt forks pushed in, I salvaged engine and brakes, everything else was fucked, the tank was flat. And then, but it all happened, right, all at the same time, right? My best mate died, crashed my bike, and my mum and dad, this happened because me and our kid were growing up, right? My mum had decided to pursue a career in drama and amateur dramatics, and she'd start going out all hours. She'd come home late, and my dad had come home from work after grafting, and there were no tea on table, and we lived on pot noodles for about fucking 12 months, and it were awful, and they were arguing. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they got a divorce. It was really, really bad atmosphere in the house. And they got this divorce. I mean, me and our kid were, as heads were wrecked. Anyway, my mum, she decided to move her out, right? She went to Wortley Towers of all places, man. She had a Metro man and her wheels got nicked off it and got put on bricks. Me and our kid chose to live with my dad. And then my brother, he started going out and knocking about with a group of lads from the local park. When I say a group of lads, more than a group of them, there were loads. And he used to come home with red eye, you know what I mean, and I didn't have a tube of glue. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you know what I mean, I think I'd almost finished college, right, and I was a bit of a big head, you know what I mean, bit of a know-it-all. I mean, I didn't listen to, I listened to music, right, you know what I mean, but it was music from my dad's era, I mean, it's not that there's all wrong with it, but it's like Dire Straits, Fleetwood Mac, Frank Goes to Hollywood, you know what I mean, stuff like that, Stranglers. Good music, but you know what it is, I want right into it, and I didn't really get it. Anyway, our kid had started. He'd started getting in. He started listening to Pink Floyd, and I didn't like. I'd not heard it before. And I used to take piss. He asked me once. I said to him, "What do you want for?" I think it was his Christmas. I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" He went, "I want Pink Floyd, The Wall." Anyway, I got him it. And I mean, you've got to be. You can be mistaken for thinking that Roger Waters, lead singer at Pink Floyd, can sing because he well, you know, you'd be forgiven saying that he can't because he has got like a you know, unusual singing voice, shall we say. And I didn't understand it, you know what I mean? Like I say, I was a bit of a knobhead, bit of a big head. I used to take piss. And like, you know, so it like, my mate died. I wrote my bike off. My mum and dad got divorced all at the same time. And then there were that book that my grandma gave me, then there was something else happened. There was to change my life. Like I say, there was a bad atmosphere in the house, right? And at this point, right, I'd landed a really good job as a junior graphic designer in Morley at a company called Admiral Training Company, and I beat 92 people for the job. I started to go worked in a suit and tie every day in suit and tie. I had a Golf, I had my, you know, I'd had my bikes, I had loads of cars and bikes. It was just, I had that many that I can't keep fucking track of them. You know, what I had and when and where. But anyway, yeah, started work. And my dad started on Special Brew. I started work and his head were in the shed. It was only for about 4 months, but, you know, his head were fucked. But me and our kid had free reign at house, you know, we could go. And what it is, I were a bit of a recluse, like I said, but what it is one of the lads in park that our kid were knocking about, and he went into his bikes. And like, I got to know this, and I'd pass right, and I'd pull in on my bikes and stuff. This is, you know, like while I was at college, going back a bit. And we got talking, and like, while this were all going on, I sort of like got to know these group of lads from the park, and they were like, loads of them, they were like there'd be a group of fucking metalers, and then there'd be a group of like twackers, and there'd be a group of weed heads, you know what I mean? And, you know, you get truckers getting a stolen car and bezzing about in it, and police would come and they'd put on a show, then it'd be burnt out in car park, and then you get, you know, and they'd have different cliques and stuff, and I sort of like started to knock about with them, and it was weird. My life changed. It was like I went through a really amazing change. Like, they were smoking weed, and I mean, like I said, I was a straight and I didn't like do up like that. I didn't smoke, drink, you know what I mean? I was pretty, you know, wet behind ears really, and naive in where that sort of stuff's concerned. You know, I never smoked, and then I started to, I tried it, and it was amazing. It was like, you know, graphic design, right? There's only one more stressful job you can get other than graphic design, and that's air traffic control. And then you've got graphic design for deadlines and stress about the job. You know, my mum and dad had just divorced. My mate had died, and I could come home, and I'd got a red light bulb in my bedroom in light, and I'd stick some Floyd on, and I'd have a spliff, and I'd get transported to a world of peace, and it was this. And I got into my music, and I sort of like regretted, you know, the way I thought, and I thought, and I thought I remember thinking that I was like a bit gutted that I'd sort of like discovered this a bit too late. But yeah, anyway, that was going on. Anyway, you know, it is how I got this job. I'll tell you a story. This is where it went a bit mental. Right, listen to this. Right, so I've got up one morning late for work, right, and I didn't have a clean shirt. I was in attic room, and I've come downstairs, right, and me and our kid used to have locks on his doors, right, because we used to raid each other's rooms. Our kid had got an apprenticeship with BMW. You know, both went to work in his shirt, tie, Anyway, I've got all late for work, and I didn't have a clean shirt, and I've been knocking on his door, and I've said, look, I need, can I borrow a clean shirt, blah, 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 you know what I mean, blah. No answer, bang, bang, can I, anyway, I've bent down, right, and I'm looking through keel, right, old style keel, and it was a small room, right, and there were blinds, and I could see light coming through blinds, and I could see his wardrobe, and I could see top of his chest of drawers, and I could see a bit of his bed, and I'm looking through, and then all of a sudden, right, it went black, and then an eyeball were at the other side of the door, an eyeball, a human eye. So anyway, I've sort of like gone back a bit, and I thought, he's in and he's not saying out. Anyway, so I'm braying on the door, and I says, I've seen you, I know you were there. Anyway, no, so anyway, I had to fuck it off and make do. Anyway, that night I've come home, and my dad and our kids there having a tea. And I said, I saw you, to my brother. You know, what are you on about? I said, this morning. I said, all you had to do was, lend me a clean shirt. I saw you, you know what I mean? Anyway, he looked at me blankly, and he says, I said, what time did you go to work? He went 7:30. This was about 8:15. Anyway, I thought, oh, man, that's a bit, oh my God. Anyway, I confided, I told my dad and my brother what I'd seen, and they just took piss, you know what I mean? They just took the fucking piss. Didn't believe me at all. And anyway, it fucking blagged my head, and I thought, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to... Anyway, I thought, I'll tell my grandma what happened. Anyway, tell my gran. She says, it'll be your great-granddad. I went, what? She says, it'll be your great-granddad. She says, he's been talking to one of my younger cousin. My mum's sister had two lads. They'd been talking to a younger cousin. But you see, I was only grandkid that met him while he were alive, and he died when I was like 7, and the rest of the grandkids didn't meet him. And he says, yeah, he's been asking him about his schoolwork and stuff like that. And she said to my cousin, what did he look like? Describe him. And he says, grey pinstripe suit, grey trilby hat, black rimmed spectacles, Alan Wicker tash, thin stature, 5'8". Described him to an absolute T. To a T. Never even met him in his life. Anyway, she says it'll be him. Anyway, it blagged me. I did that. I thought, wow. I know what I saw. You know what I mean? I wasn't making, I wasn't on drugs at all. I smoked a bit of weed, but fuck me. You don't hallucinate like that when you're on weed. But anyway, that all happened within like space of 6 months. And you know what it is? I went from strength to strength at work. You know what I mean? I did well. I did print-based stuff, and I did computer-based training, graphics, 3D animation, 2D animation, and yeah. So listen, that's end of this part. Stay tuned, right? Again, I apologise for those people that have had to like relive this and watch it again, but it's a better one. It's more concise, and I look forward to seeing you in 2B. Respect.